welcome to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. This is Jonathan, your host, and here at RedBeard Outdoors, we talk about the three things: faith and family, fitness, and the outdoors. And I welcome you back to anyone that is continuously listening. I really appreciate it. And to anyone that's new, welcome. Thank you for choosing me to listen and to join me in my journey. Today, I've got a special treat for you guys. It's Jess with Follow Her Arrow. I loved this conversation. It was awesome speaking with Jess about her journey, why she's so into the outdoors, and how that is applicable to her daily life. She's made a career out of it. She absolutely loves backpacking, hunting, being outside, camping, doing all the things that you can imagine an outdoorsman would love to do. So before we get into that conversation with Jess, I just wanted to bring up these amazing companies that I work with. Again, I'm not trying to sell you anything, guys. I want you to understand that if you're in the market for these particular items, I just want you to save some money and to, I appreciate that you trust my feedback, and the companies that I've tested out and used and have chosen to work with are some great companies. So if you're looking for supplements of any kind, whether it be protein, multivitamin, fish oil, those are kind of my staples. A good greens formula, I would definitely point you in the direction of First Form. If you use the link down below, you can get free shipping on all your orders. But basically, First Form is an American-made company, American manufactured, and they just do an awesome job with the quality of their products. I haven't found any other supplement brand out there that is anywhere near the quality. But on top of that, their customer service is outstanding. So go give them a shot if you're needing some multivitamin, fish oil, some protein powder. Go check them out. Also, Absolute Aid is a company that I work with, and they are a CBD company that doesn't have any THC. It's simply a chewable that I use personally. I prefer their Recover formula that is great for days that you maybe have trained really hard the day before. You're feeling a little extra sore that day. It just helps to ease off the pain that you may be feeling from the soreness and from the hard work that you've done in the gym or on the mountain, wherever it may be. So go check out absoluteaid.com for your CBD chewables. And then also alpenfuel.com. Alpen Fuel makes the most amazing backcountry granola that you'll ever have. So you should definitely go check them out. My favorite is the white chocolate cranberry, with a close second being the chocolate strawberry or the apple caramel. So definitely go check them out. They're great cold water, hot water. Go give them a taste before you get out in the backcountry for backpacking or eventually hunting in the fall. They also sell meals from other companies that I really enjoy their food as well. Being gluten-free due to issues that I have to deal with, I've found very few companies that don't tear up my gut when we're in the backcountry, but Heather's Choice makes great meals. If you're looking for something other than granola, definitely go check out Heather's Choice. That's on alpenfuel.com. You can save 10%, use my code, order Heather's Choice, or also Peak Refuel. They've got a couple of gluten-free options, but they also have some other amazing meals. From what I've been told, they are just fantastic. If they're anywhere near the quality of their gluten-free meals, which I imagine they are, then you should definitely go check them out as well. Other than that, guys, all my other companies and links that I use are down below. Go check them out. I definitely appreciate you supporting the podcast and sharing this with others. And without further ado, let's get you listening to this conversation between me and Jess. Awesome. Well, I've got Jessica Byers here, and I've met Jessica a couple years back, or I guess it was last year at Elk Shape Camp. And she works with Alpen Fuel. She's been hunting her whole life pretty much and has had some amazing experiences. And well, I'll just let Jessica tell us a little bit more about who she is. Jessica, you want to give us a little rundown as to who you are?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. It was really good connecting with you last year, and I love seeing the things that you're doing in your personal life and professional, starting a podcast. And I mean, it's cool to watch you grow. So thanks for having me on. Quick background. I'm a Texas born and raised. I'm from Central Texas, and my dad got me started in the outdoors. He used to he's taken me pretty much everywhere from, we had a lease growing up in Texas. And so I went deer hunting with them, turkey hunting, hog hunting, anything you can hunt in Texas. There's quite a few things you can hunt, thankfully. And he just waited for me to say I was ready. He didn't push it on me. I always admire, now that I'm older, I can really look back and truly be grateful and admire the way he approached it. Whereas I think that some parents can be a little bit more aggressive with how they introduce their kids, because they really want it. They want them to be addicted, but he just kept exposing me to it, teaching me. He took every opportunity to teach me about what we saw, or, why we did things the way we did. And so it wasn't until like 8th grade, I think, end of 8th grade, that I decided, I'm like, Dad, I think I want to shoot a deer. And I just remember how excited he got. And anyway, went through the whole thing, hunter safety, target practice, how you handle a gun, the whole 9 yards. And I got hooked. It's really cool. He likes to say that he planted the seed for what would become a big part of my life. I think the outdoors has a really, really neat way of doing that. Even when I was in college, I was focused on school and working, and I didn't hunt very much. I didn't have the time. I had other priorities. I was having fun with friends and college football and the whole 9 yards. So I went away from it for a little bit, couple years, 3-4 years. But I always came back to it. And now, this is, what I get to do full time in a way. I do have an office job. I work at Hunting Full, but thankfully we have a lot of time off, and had some pretty incredible experiences before now. And even being here now, there's a lot of opportunity that comes through here. It's really cool what's out there. There's a lot of adventure to be had by the most green, beginner hunters to those that are well seasoned and they feel like they've experienced it all. And then next thing you know, they're opening up a new chapter. So it's the gift of the outdoors.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I love that. I want to key in on something there that you mentioned, that you weren't forced. Like your dad didn't just throw a rifle in your hands and say, go sit in the stand with me for hours and be cold, or, things like that. Like he planted the seeds and let you make the decision. Right. It wasn't something that they made you do, it was something that you got to choose. And I think that's a big thing. One, as kids, you're going to fight everything that your authority figures, whether it be your parents or grandparents, ask you to do anyway. But, but seeing them in their example, like that was a big deal for you. And I love that, because I think there's a lot of people that get frustrated with their kids and wanting to pass this on to their kids, something that they love and enjoy, but they almost force them away from it because it's not something that the kids want at that time. And so,
or they don't have a great experience too. Yeah. Like I've watched a lot just freeze their butt off, or they get bored because they're not seeing anything. And, you really have to figure out how to navigate that with kids and keep them entertained. And when they say they're done, be done. Like, let them leave, let them choose how much they want to be out there. Make sure they're having fun, or you will ruin it. I've seen a lot of parents do it. They're just diehard hunters and they can't figure out why their kids don't love it. But, it's all in how it's introduced. And if it's a kid or a woman, you better make sure they're comfortable, like gear, like keep them warm, keep them entertained.
Keep them full. Food, keep them full.
Yes. Lots of food. Yes. There's some pretty easy ways to ruin a hunt quickly for any new hunter, but I think little boys probably just naturally it's the way they're built, right? They love it a lot quicker. But even then they can get tired of it too. It just depends on what kind of kid you are.
Yeah. I was going to say my son has, I hate seeing, I feel like it's overdiagnosed, but he definitely has ADHD, and he's a high, like there's some people that can hyper focus because they're low energy ADHD. This kid is like bouncing off the walls if you don't have him occupied every 15 seconds. And so I agree with what you're saying as far as like, for me, when I take my kids out, I don't plan on feeling attacked. Like I'm not going to take them on my limited entry hunts or things like that really mean a big deal to me until they're able to, withstand those things. Like with Asher, this last year, the turkeys weren't where they needed to be, but I got them on the binoculars, how to identify them, how to see deer. And we got within 10 yards of a deer. It wasn't deer season. And so the deer know that,
Yeah.
and, and so we had a little, right. Exactly. Yeah. I swear there's pheromones on these tags they send out to us. But the deer, like they got within 10, 15 yards of us. And we had the whole conversation of like, it's not deer season. Wasn't that a cool experience though? You got to see them. It was like 5 or 6 does and a little buck that was with them. And it's awesome. But yeah, you have to go into it with that mindset for sure of, you don't want to push them and you don't want to cause your frustration of not filling a tag on them either, because that's not going to make them want to come back out with you. Right. But definitely the warmth, the food, and the entertainment. Those are 3 major things, especially with kids. So tell me a little bit more about, growing up with being in the outdoors with your family. What were some of your favorite things that you used to do?
Oh man. So hog hunting is huge in Texas, and obviously you can go out with night vision. But even then we would go out with like spotlights and go rabbit hunting. And I mean, we had one of those old like Jeep Wranglers, just like a manual one with a high rack on it. And they would, this is so not safe, but they would let me sit on the hood while we drive around on back roads spotlighting and shoot rabbits from the hood of the Jeep. And just, I mean, blaring country music and like, the campfires, the good cooking, the being away from cell service. I mean, of course, I remember my first kill. It was just me and my dad, and that was, super special. But it's all those other things that are really cool that back then I didn't know the gift that I had, like I still get like so sentimental about it. I mean, even when I got older, not necessarily when I was like a kid, I remember, I hope it's okay to say this on your podcast. My sisters and I had this tradition where because it was a 4.5 hour drive to the middle of nowhere to get to this particular lease that we had. And, the song Red Dirt Road, and they say it's where I drank my first beer. Yeah. So we would hit the dirt road, and that was our tradition, hit the dirt road on the way to the gate and drink a beer. And like, it just reminded me of freedom. It reminded me of like when I grew into my confidence, when I learned how to drive a stick shift, when I learned about wildlife. And it's just, there's so many things that encompass why that was special to me. But the memories of my dad are, pretty far up there as well. But I had a lot of freedom. He'd let me take out 4-wheelers by myself in middle school. This is not when I got older. Like I said, he taught me how to drive a stick shift when I was, I think, 14 or 15. He let me start hunting by myself shortly after I'd shot a few animals. Like, he really allowed me to grow into a young lady, and then a woman. Whenever I got older, we still had that property. Obviously, I wasn't drinking beer in middle school for the listeners, but I don't know. It's all those things. South Texas sunsets are unreal. The landscape everything's brushy and pokes you. You don't have super tall terrain, so the sky is unreal. We'd go rattlesnake hunting. We'd like, you name it, and we did it. Yeah, he used to quail hunt down there. It's like I had a lot of first experiences down there. And I did not know, once we lost that property, I didn't know, I couldn't at the time. I think I took it for granted, and then we lost it. And I realized this is why my dad was so upset when we lost that property, because we didn't own it. We were leasing it. It was a 10-year contract. And I don't know. I feel like I found out a lot about myself in those years, and to do it with my dad next to me was pretty cool. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, that is pretty sweet. Sounds like you had an awesome childhood growing up out there in Texas. And I mentioned this before we started recording, but yeah, I've never been to Texas, and that's kind of what you, at least what I picture, everything that you were just describing when I think Texas. And so I'm excited to head down there at the beginning of April and check it out and see. I tried to convince my wife that we should move down to Texas for a month in April, just so I could hang out. And
Yeah.
she didn't like that idea too much, but that's awesome. So it sounds like, I mean, you grew up pretty much in the outdoors. That's pretty much all you did as a kid from
No,
what I'm
no, no, but I was exposed to it a lot. So we
okay.
lived in the
Well,
city.
more than most children, I guess.
Yeah, because it was a passion of my dad. So before my parents split up, they split up when I was about 6 years old. And when they were together, we had a house that at the time was out in the country. And like my dad would bird hunt in our backyard, backed up into, fields, farmland. So we'd hunt across the street, backyard, down the neighbor's house. Like you could go a while before you saw one of our neighbors at one time. And now it's weird to go back because it's an entire fully developed neighborhood that's just in town. Like what was once the country is no longer. So he was hunting like in this is gonna like I'm really exposing my dad right now, but we had this. He was such a redneck. He caught a pregnant wild pig and had it in our backyard, like as a dog run, and raised it. Well, he didn't know it was pregnant and it had piglets. And so he was like literally raising wild pigs in our backyard. And like, I remember going out and feeding that with them. And then the mom got pissed that I was next to all the babies and she ripped the pocket out of my jeans. Like she attacked me. You've heard about pigs like attacking
Oh
people,
yeah.
particularly when there's babies around. But yeah. And then like he loved fishing. So he had this in our what was supposed to be a hot tub that was not a hot tub. He had this big, I think it was a bass. I don't remember if it was a bass or a catfish, but he literally just, when he felt like wetting a line, he would go in our hot tub, catch this fish over and over again. Like that's literally what I remember in my childhood. So yes, maybe I wasn't out hunting on a property all the time, but I was exposed to it. And then they split. So he invested in a lease. He always had some type of lease. And then we'd go out there on the weekends when we could, and I actually have more fishing memories with my dad than hunting, like in my really young childhood, because we grew up around a lot of lakes in Central Texas. So I was born and raised in Temple. We lived in Belton for a little bit, but you have several lakes, great fishing lakes around there. And we always had a boat and jet skis and things like that. So, I mean, I can remember memories, just the two of us on a boat, and like all of our fishing poles would just freaking lay over, and I'd be squealing and helping him reel in. And, so yes, I think I was exposed to it more than the average person, but there was still a lot of other pieces to our life because he was raising 3 daughters on his own. So, or as a single dad, he had a woman in his life that is now my stepmom, but, yeah, we lived in an apartment for a really, really long time because that's what he needed he needed a low maintenance place to, run his business and be able to fund, these, weekend adventures.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't grow up on property. He does have property now. My little sister is living a dream. Not to sound ungrateful for my life, because I do have a pretty great life, but she is truly growing up like in the country, outside of town, hundreds of acres, has an entire farm. They live off the land. They can hunt all over. And that's where we moved from. When we took this job at Alpen Fuel, we were living on that property on the other end. Like we couldn't see my dad or anything, but we lived close by. We lived in a fifth wheel there for 15 months before moving here. And I mean, you could step out of our trailer and be shooting your bow out to 80 yards. Just every single day I did that. And then I'd go hog hunting at night or go fishing with him. And so that's all my sister's ever known. She's 9 now. It's all she's ever known. So she's going to be a hell of a hunter. I'm certain. I mean, she can pick up tracks and it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That sounds pretty sweet. Now, you just to kind of touch on fishing. I don't touch a lot on fishing just because I'm not really that good at it. I grew up doing going for bass. That was probably my favorite fish to go after, topwater bass fishing. What was your favorite fish growing up, and I guess now?
Um, well, my memories, the memories of my dad were going bass fishing. That's what I remember doing with him. Let me preface this by saying I'm not a good angler. Like I've caught plenty of fish, but unlike hunting, I have to have my hand held. I need to learn. I don't know what, lure to put on or anything like that. I think I know the most about crappie fishing. Depending on who's listening, I might say crappie fishing, but we say
Yeah.
crappie in the South. When I met my husband, he was living the bachelor life for a while, making good money, and he bought himself a boat. So when I met him, he had this amazing crappie boat, and super lightweight. We could take it up in the shallows, and freaking, you hit the right pocket, and they would nail it. But that probably still is my, I don't know. Trout fishing since I moved up here has been pretty fun because it's a whole new world. And then you add fly fishing to that. I learned that
Yep.
this past year. That's just the most beautiful, just it's a work of art. But I don't know. I have a lot more experience crappie fishing, and it's holds a lot of memories with, me and my husband. We have a lot of awesome, just like staying out through the night on the boat, just with spotlights and catching crappie. And it's a totally different kind of fishing. You go from bass fishing to crappie fishing. I ripped a lot of lips because it's like paper thin, and I could not get that out of my head.
Mm.
So he taught me a lot about that. And then we'd go spider rigging through the channels and catch a ton. We'd get like 8 poles out there and just, you know, work that. And sometimes they'd all be going off and getting tangled. But I'd say crappie fishing, but I think fly fishing specifically for trout is going to quickly become top of the line for me. It's just because it's new, and I chase first time, just new, fresh experiences.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't done any like cold weather trout fishing, but yeah, about 2 years ago was the first time I ever dabbled in fly fishing, and I don't have anything technical, or I picked up a handful of flies and one of
Yeah.
the cheapo rods, and I was out there on the lake while we were canoeing and kayaking and stuff, and I just kind of waded out to my waist. And the first one I caught, it was only, it was like this big, right? It wasn't that
Yeah.
big, but it was cool. It was similar to that bass fishing where you get to see the whole interaction, the top water kind of fishing. And but also I feel like fly fishing is a lot like the bow hunting or I guess the archery of hunting, right? Where there's a lot more technicality behind it. You're constantly moving. There's more, I guess, artistic. I don't know how you would describe it, but you just, it's more engaging to me than just throwing a bobber out and waiting for something to bite a hook,
That's how I feel about what I'd never been ice fishing, but people go like they love ice fishing, and I'm like,
Yeah. Mm-mm.
dude, I don't know. I don't know if that's for me
I
because
went once and I was like, yeah, maybe, like I could see tents set up and heaters and like, cool, if you got all the gear and you make a day of it or camp out on the lake, whatever your thing is, I could see that being fun. But like drilling holes, and then I guess probably too, we had our kids with us. So watching them, and they were bored out of their minds because nothing was biting. And like I could see where if you find a good hot spot, like that would be fun. But drilling holes constantly just because your kids are like, okay, we're bored with this one, let's go over here.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
was like, yeah, I don't know about this.
I don't know about that either. I mean, I will say before I tried fly fishing, I really love so my in-laws, Braxton's family's part of his family's from North Carolina.
Mm.
And so they introduced me into like literally just wading through the river for miles on a spinner and just
Mm.
catching the hell out of trout. And that is so much fun.
Yeah, well, you can't really
But
fly fish out there because you get tangled up in the trees.
yeah, well, depends on where you go. There
Mm.
there are a ton of fly fishermen that we would pass, and we'd always make jokes like, "Oh, have fun catching one every hour," while we're you know ripping lips. But yeah, it's a lot more fast paced. But once I learned, you know, introductory level fly fishing, I would like to go back to certain stretches where I know I could, fly fish there, because it's beautiful. North Carolina is so beautiful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I love growing up there, and I was on the verge of moving back, probably 6 years ago.
Mm.
And just because it's so dry out here. It's until I got out in the mountains, like I was like, I'm getting depressed. Like there's nothing natural out here. It's all buildings and concrete. And but once I got out in the mountains, it's a whole different story, and it hooked me, kept me here. So but anyway, that's awesome. It sounds like I mean, yeah, you had other aspects of your life, obviously, but you were exposed to a lot of the outdoors growing up. And I think that's amazing. I think that's missing in a lot of people's lives. I know there's science behind it and everything like that. I don't have any studies to pull out, but people are just happier when you unplug. And there was something I read recently where even if you're outside, but you're on your phone, you don't get the same benefit as when you put your phone down and just go for a 30-minute walk. Or I always say to people, like, don't be the parent that's at the park sitting on their phone on the bench. Like, go be a kid and go monkey bars and run around and chase your kids and play tag and all this stuff, because there's just something about it. Like, it's one of those intangibles that you can't really put a statistic on, but you just feel different. And you had that same experience, and you still have those experiences. You just drew an awesome tag. Remind me what you're going for.
Alaska mountain goat.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's
but
awesome.
The way you described what you just described. So I mean, obviously elk hunting is like my favorite thing ever, archery elk hunting, but I definitely remember the hunts. The hunts where I was completely disconnected and didn't have service are way more memorable than any hunt where I, could go to the top of the mountain and get service and check in. Particularly this last year, and when I was in New Mexico, the first time I talked to my bosses again when I got to service, they were like, how's it going? And I had not like been on a phone or talked to anybody for like I think it was 12, 13 days or something. And I'm like, I feel really disconnected. Like, and what I meant with them is typically I don't really, I love my job. There's not a day that I've come in here where I felt like I was going to work. Not one single day. Been here for 2.5 years. And it's hard for me to let go of it because I love it so much. It doesn't feel like work. So for me to go away and not have contact with my bosses to know what's going on and keep me plugged in was really hard to come back to. And they're like, well, that's the point of why we do it. And I was like, so thankful that I have, an environment that understands it, whereas,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have jobs and they can get off to go hunt. Maybe they get off to go hunt a lot more than the average person. But if you don't have a community that understands why that it's not just a want, but it's actually a need, that it's therapeutic and it's great for your mental health, and it's good to disconnect, truly disconnect. And it's one of the only ways you can disconnect. Like, in today's world, it seems like everywhere you go, you can tap in somewhere. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And I still love that I have hunts I can go on where I do have service, because I don't want to feel like I'm abandoning my team. We have a very fast paced life inside the office and outside. And so I like those kind of hunts in between. But yes, the Alaska mountain goat, and right before that butts up to it, it's like literally, I think there's a 2-day break in between. I'm going caribou hunting too. So I'll be in Alaska for,
Nice.
I think, 3 weeks. I haven't
Might
done,
as well, while you're up there, right? Might as well go for the caribou as well.
well, I already had that planned. That's what's so crazy.
Oh,
That's a
that's
DIY
awesome.
like drop camp situation. I already had that planned. So I leave August 23rd, and I don't get back until September 10th or 12th or something. So I don't know. I don't know how many days that is, but there's only a 2-day break in between those where I'll have some service to check in, and then I go back out again. But otherwise, no, yeah, it's a disconnect 100%. I have a satellite phone and I don't plan to use that very much.
Yeah.
So
No, that's awesome. Yeah, it's and I'm reading the book right now called The Comfort Crisis. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book.
I've heard of it.
Um,
I haven't read it, but it is on my list. I've got to read it. Everybody just keeps recommending it to
yeah.
me.
It's a pretty recent book. I didn't realize how new it was because he brings up the pandemic and COVID and everything in the book. So I'm like,
Oh,
oh, he
wow.
must have wrote this within the last 2 years. Um, but yeah, he talks about his experience going up to Alaska and how we don't have enough opportunities to feel hungry, literally hungry, or bored. There's always something, and he said it didn't hit him until there was a stretch of time that it was only like 10 minutes, but he didn't have his phone and he was like literally reading tags on his backpack because he was because he was so bored. He was like, I don't know what to do with this. Like people don't think about that, but it's definitely it's eye-opening. It's crazy to get out in the woods. And um I hate the squirrels sometimes, but when the squirrels are quiet and you actually get some quiet, it's nice to sit there and just like be in your own mind and be present in what's going around you, hearing the breeze and feeling the thermal switch and just being in tune with nature after a couple of days of being out there and not having any cell service. It's a whole nother experience that I would recommend to anybody, no matter what level of fitness or hunter you're at. If you don't even have to go hunting, go backpacking and just get out there for a little bit. But yeah, it's a whole nother thing. It's one of those intangibles you can't put words on.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good book. Like I said, I didn't know it was that new either. So I'm even more interested now because it's current and it's even more relevant. But um, one thing that you said that made me think of another time in my life not too long ago was you said it makes you be with yourself, like in your own mind and in when it's that quiet and you notice small things about the outdoors. You hear things that you sometimes can't slow down long enough to appreciate. And it reminded me over the past, I don't know, year or so. So I'm a big advocate for therapy, by the way, whether or not you have issues or not. Like I just think therapy is so healthy. So I'm typically active in some kind of therapy or growth of some kind. And I have really bad anxiety. Like I can get super anxious and I think really far ahead. Or at times I can live in the past and think about what I could have done different. It's the perfectionist mentality. And one of the things they told me was to think about the things that you can control and to ask yourself, there are two parts to it. One is to ask yourself, what time frame are you in? To just truly ask yourself, are you in the present, are you in the future, or are you in the past? And then one of the ways that you kind of stay in tune with that is to start the one of the ways you tap into the present if you're not sure or you're not really sure like how to get back to it is to think about your senses. What can I smell? What can I hear? What can I touch? What can I, what do I feel like? And what do I see right now in this moment? And I feel like the outdoors is really good at like kind of keeping that at the forefront where you kind of everything else melts away. And it's therapeutic, but it's easy to stay in tune with the present when you're outdoors, where it's a lot harder in the busy life that every day when I'm here. And then my anxiety gets really, really bad. So yeah, they said, ask yourself what time frame you're in, and then ask yourself if it's something that you can control. Because if you can't control it, then there's no need to worry. And if it's something that's in the future, it's in the past, then there's no need to worry. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting that the outdoors, I never feel that way. Like before we started recording, we were talking about like bears and mountain lions and stuff because people have, honest, realistic and very common fears of predators when they're out in the middle of nowhere. And I don't even know where I was going with that, but I don't even think about that when I'm out there. Like I don't even have those fears. The anxiety that I feel every day in everyday life goes away, even knowing that there's predators all around me. You may not see them, but they're there. So
Yep.
It's just interesting that the outdoors can do that for you.
Yeah, it's one of those medicines that just you can't get enough of. right? And obviously, like you can't, I mean, you can live out there, but modern society, modern times, you have to work, you have to, come back to reality. But
Sure.
having those times to go out and recharge is, I mean, it's a whole nother thing. I love being able to go out and camp with my family, even that we don't have cell service. I've got my phone on me to take pictures and that's it. And even then, like there's times where I don't take the pictures because I don't want to break my phone out, because I'm just enjoying the moment. And it sucks later because you're like, man, I wish I had taken that picture. But at the same time, you have that memory. And it's funny because I was listening to someone, or maybe I was watching a video of someone that was out, and it had just like freshly rained on this elk hunt. And I could literally smell, like I had like those senses, like what you're saying, tapping into your senses while you're out there. They kind of washed over me. And it's kind of dumb because it was a video, but at the same time, like I remember a day where we were going out and it just hailed and rained, and then the smell of it afterwards, and the feel of how the air was moist, and just all of that stuff just came washing back over me, because I was present in that moment. And then I went back to watching a video or whatever, and I could remember every single sense that I had in that moment. And there's a lot of times where we don't have that in modern day. Like when I got COVID, I didn't know I had COVID, right? And I can't remember someone close to me said they tested positive, whatever. So I went and I was like, okay, well, cool. I was like, I don't remember the last time I tasted something, because you generally get in the routine of you eat the same thing every day. Your mind just kind of tells you this is what it tastes like, right? I went and put a spoonful of hot sauce in my mouth and couldn't taste it, nothing. And I was like, oh, well, great. So, but like, it just reminded me that like you go through kind of on autopilot in your life. You do the same things generally every day. You eat the same things generally every day. You're not even thinking about what it tastes like,
Yeah.
And it just, being outdoors is just a whole nother, it allows you to tap in. But, something that I've noticed as well, and you were saying control what you can control. That's another big thing. Our lifespan is going up with modern medicine and everything, right? But something else in that book that he brings up is that health span is going down. And if you think about that, and I kind of, you think about it, but you don't really think about it until someone says something about it. And controlling what you can control with your fitness, with your health. Obviously, there's things that are out of your control, but what are you doing on a daily basis to control your nutrition, to control your health? Because yeah, you can be strapped up to a machine until you're 90, 95, but are you really healthy and enjoying life?
Right.
And so what I wanted to kind of segue into you enjoy CrossFit style workouts. You meal prep. What are some things that you found that work for you in preparation for, like, you're going on an Alaska goat hunt? That's intense. Like that's pretty intense. So what do you do to control what you can control in your nutrition and your fitness? What's something that you enjoy doing?
Well, I will say that it's a lot easier to stay on track and stay consistent in your goals when you have something as cool as a mountain goat hunt to prepare for. Usually archery elk is that for me. It still is. But I feel like I've had to truly like crank it up a notch. It's like, okay, I can't just take a week off from shooting my bow. I can't just skip the gym for a little bit or, spend 2 weeks binge eating whatever I want, and I love food. I don't necessarily have the healthiest relationship with food. I've always been super slender. Both my parents are very slender. I've gotten away with eating whatever I want and still, not had to deal with weight issues. But what I do struggle with really bad is inflammation. And my mom has colitis. My dad's had some, I think he has some gut issues, and all that stems from inflammation. I'm fully aware. But getting over the mental, well, it just tastes so freaking good. I love everything. There's not Honestly, the thing that I don't like, and I still eat them, is like raw carrots. Like I can't stand raw carrots, but I still eat them because they're healthy. So I think the tip that I would give anybody is to learn. I always thought it was weird when people would read labels on foods and stuff, but I think a lot of people look at labels and they are looking for the good stuff, or what is the calories, or what is the protein and fat, and like that's all good, but like maybe you should look at the ingredients and see if you know what every single ingredient is. Because in terms of inflammation, like I have to look at oils and gums and just weird things that I never looked at before. You know, sugar is the obvious one, but people always preach like, oh, sugar's bad, sugar's this, sugar's that, but not, we're talking like there's different levels of that, right? We're talking about like processed sugars. We're not talking about like if you eat a ton of berries, you're going to wind up in the hospital, you know? So I think like having some realistic boundaries through knowledge, because knowledge is power, or I should say what you do with knowledge is power, because you can learn anything that you want, but if you're not applying it, doesn't matter. But I had to dive into like, what is this ingredient? What does it do to me? Is that going to help me on this goal? Is that why I feel this way? And start connecting those things, where for so long I've just been like, oh, ignorance is bliss, and I'm skinny and I'm fine. And well, just because you're skinny doesn't mean you're healthy. And I had to learn that the hard way. I have a lot of gut issues. I have a lot of inflammation issues. My knees and ankles and hips can start hurting really, really bad if I'm eating bad. I like burgers and pizzas and milkshakes just like the next person. Like I'm human, and it's okay to have those things sometimes. I don't think I don't think that it's realistic to be like, it's an all or nothing thing. I didn't have that mentality about, pieces of my life, and it's not healthy. And so I think you look at like what's sustainable and just be in tune with it. When you go back to like the present and how you feel when you eat something, think about how it made you feel. Do you feel good? Do you feel energized? Do you feel sluggish? Do you want to take a nap? Do you feel bloated? Like, and so then I start having those conversations when I pick out certain foods. And I'm really focusing on foods right now because I've never really had a problem working out. I think I do it more for my sanity than anything. The physical stuff is just a plus side of that. But the food is what I continue to struggle with. It's a battle. I get better all the time, right? Like I'm nowhere near where I was 2 years ago. I'm in a lot better place, but I think that's what I would tell people is like, food can be medicine and food can be poison. So you get to choose. That is something that you can control. I don't believe that we live in a world where it's possible to just be completely toxic free, or, not have any toxins in anything that we eat. I think, we live in a chemical processed world, and you have to be realistic if you do travel a lot and go to events and things like that. But you can always be better. So that's kind of a long-winded way, but it is all about preparation. I don't like to cook. You said I meal prep. If I didn't have my husband to help me meal prep, I don't know what I would do. Like, he is a saint. He meal preps. He has such a regimen. It's actually beautiful. Whereas I'd rather just spend a little extra money. Again, it's a trade-off, right? I'd rather spend a little extra money and subscribe to what do you call it? Like a food.
Yeah, just like a meal prep site. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've tried several of them. Right now I've been using Trifecta. I'm going to try, I can't think of what it's called right now. I just looked it up a couple nights ago. I like to try new ones though, switch it up, because I get bored easily too, because I love food, all food. So I think like, making sure you're not getting bored. And if that means you spend a little extra money, because to me, time is precious. The same reason why I'd rather just pay someone, $40 every 3 or 4 weeks to, come in and do a deep clean on my house. I don't want to spend hours cleaning my house. I have better things to do. That's not everybody. I feel the same way about food at times with a busy lifestyle. Supplement where I can, make good decisions, but it's better than eating out where you don't know what oils they're using. And I think I'm focusing on oils because I cannot believe the things that we consume every day by eating out, whether even when it's like, when you think it's the healthiest thing, like freaking seeds and fruit and dried fruit and things that you buy at the store that are labeled so beautifully organic, this like, just, it's insane how much canola oil and seed oils and disgusting, like, you're basically just like asking for inflammation throughout your body. And again, if that's not your problem, that's not what you struggle with, you're awesome. Great. But that's my reality. And that's what I had to get really real about this past year. And that's how I stay focused, is like trying to gain more, absorb as much information as I can, follow people who break down those ingredient lists and what they mean. And, there's several pages on social media that I follow just to learn and spend my time. Like if I'm going to be on social media, at least I'm learning something valuable about the things I don't want to consume. I feel I'm way more impacted by the way something can negatively affect me than by how something can positively affect me. And I think it's because we live in a world that's like, buy the next this and this, you'll be healthier. This, you'll lose this much in X. No, like, tell me where I'm going to be if I don't do that. And then, so it depends on your personality. I do better when someone tells me you're literally going to hit rock bottom and you're never going to get a mountain goat if you eat like that.
That drives you a little bit more, right?
How's that for an answer? I just went on a whole like side rabbit trail.
No, I agree with you. Again, it goes back to what you can control and what you can't control. You can control what you consume. And I think a lot of people, just going back to that whole, and I'm loving this phrase that I read in this book about, lifespan's going up, but health span's going down. Like, I don't want to live into my 90s if I'm going to be a vegetable, or if I'm going to be hooked to an, oxygen machine, or, like, I want to be in my 90s outrunning my great grandkids up on the mountain. Like, that's what I want to do. And so, you've got a goal in mind. And right now your immediate goal is these 2 hunts in Alaska. Obviously elk hunting is wrapped up in there. That's an every year thing, but you want to be at your best. And so you found something that you could improve on, your weak point, your chink in your armor, however you want to phrase that. And you're going after it. And that's something that, again, you can control. You can't control the weather in Alaska in August, right? But you can control what gear you bring, how your body is functioning, what food you bring on that, all the stuff. If your bow is doped and dialed in, if your shoulder's good, which I'm interested in hearing a little bit about that as well, with your shoulder injury. But, if you've taken everything out, all the variables that you can take out in whatever your goal is, you control those things. And then if something else comes, you're just like, okay, it is what it is. I'm prepared. If I don't punch, like for me this last year, I didn't punch my hook tag, but I didn't feel bad because I took all the time that I could. I had e-scouted, probably not as good as Mark Livesey, but but I had done a lot more than I thought I could. And I had multiple experiences, and I just didn't punch my tag, and I was fine with that. I was like, you know what? No regrets. I did everything I could. I didn't walk out of there feeling frustrated and saying, man, what if I had done this or that? Like, I learned. And so I feel like you're approaching it the same way, with your control. And I love that you said that, fitness isn't something that you, as far as working out is concerned, that's something that is natural for you. And I feel the same way. For me, it's, it's like my cup of coffee in the morning. I need a good workout. It's just something that I have to do. I know a lot of people out there don't feel that way, and that's their struggle, whereas nutrition isn't. And so, talk to us a little bit. You're coming back from an injury, a shoulder injury, where you just recently switched over, right, this last year to a left-handed bow. Wasn't it this last year?
No, it was back in, I want to say I switched to being a left-handed archer, like, I think 28.
Oh, so it's been a couple of years.
Maybe okay. 2017. It's hard to remember, honestly. I think it's 2018 or 2019. Yeah. 3 or 4 years, something like that.
Yeah. Because your dominant eye is your left eye, right? Even though you're right-handed.
Correct. Yeah. So, my husband, when I met him, so my dad got me in the outdoors. And then I met Braxton in 2012. Wow. Yeah. We've been together almost 10 years. So, Met him in 2012, and then like 6 months later, he put a bow in my hand, and so I'm right-handed. He surprised me with it for my birthday. He tricked me into doing this whole like literally got my draw length and everything by tricking me. It was really funny, but so surprised me with a bow. I got addicted, but I just shot right-handed, and quite honestly, that's what felt natural. Even at like my summer camps when I was younger, and they have the little like trad bows, I'd always shoot right-handed. Most kids would. Then I got into where I went to go to get certified in the NASP, National Archery in Schools program. I wanted to be an instructor and like float around to different schools around Texas and shoot with the kids. I never did that, but that was my intention. Life happened and I went a different direction, but I did go to the school and get certified. And on the very first day, they were like, let's figure out your eye dominance. I'm like, what? This is weird. Because they're teaching us how to teach kids if you're a if you have a class of kids at your school and your school puts the program in. So thought it was really strange, found out immediately in literally the first 20 minutes of this whole course that I was left eye dominant. And at this point, it was like in the spring, I think. And I was like, I'm not switching before the fall. And I don't know if I'll ever switch. Like I'm a good shot. I'm successful. I'm like, why do I need to switch? Like I mess up, but so does everybody else. Like I justified it in my head. There's nothing wrong with that. There's gonna be a lot of people that may hear this and they're in the same boat. I'm not telling you that you need to switch. I want to encourage you to try it. But anyway, the next year, after talking to a handful of people in the industry that are very successful, very accomplished archers and swear by shooting with your dominant eye, I was like, all right, we're doing this. Again, all or nothing kind of girl. So I broke my right-handed bow down and went all the way. Or I asked my local bow shop if I could just get a really low poundage left-handed bow and just borrow it like a used bow and then bring it back. Cause they would teach lessons with it, I think, or something. So I did that. I couldn't even pull like 35 pounds back. And I mean, I was truly starting over because at the time I think I was shooting 58 pounds right-handed. And I was just like, it's really discouraging, but I wanted to put everything into it. And so I did. After a couple months, it felt so natural. I still screwed up a lot in the field my first year. I don't even know if I got anything my first year. Oh, I think I shot a grouse when I was elk hunting. I think that was my first animal. That was the first animal I ever killed left-handed. Anyway, fast forward, that's all I've been hunting with since then. I never went back right-handed. Then season 2021, last fall, literally a week before the season opener, I'm fixing to go meet my dad down in New Mexico. He's got a bull tag. I have a bull tag of a wall tent camp. Like it's what we do. And I had a really heavy chest day at the gym, got home and I didn't have a cool down. I went straight from the gym. It was the heaviest I'd ever lifted. I literally like my chest muscles were smoked. I went straight to the office because I was like, I need to get reps in again. Like leading up to a hunt, I'm shooting every day. And I went to draw back and I felt a pop in my shoulder, like back behind, almost like it was like a mix of where the collarbone meets and then also throughout like my scapula. It was weird. It's awful. Then I tried it again and it was just like I could barely pick up my arm. So that was cool. I called my dad and I was like, well, I can't draw my bow back. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like openers next week. And then I don't even know. I was like, I didn't want to give up the tag. I didn't know what to do. And then it occurred to me like, well, I did shoot right-handed for 5 years, but I haven't touched my right-handed bow in, several years since I had switched. So I pulled one out. I only had, again, I've given away all my right-handed bows. Till this day, I only have one, and it's the first bow I ever owned that my husband got me. I swore I'd never get rid of it. So same strings that it had on it 10 years ago, maxed out at 50 pounds, right-handed bow, had dirt dauber nests on it. Like it was a disaster. Like it'd been in storage and stuff. It was not good. Dusted it off, pulled it back. I sighted it in wall tent camp, like when I got there, because I couldn't do it before then. I mean, I just was pulling it back, but I could not get it as dialed as I wanted. I got like a rough, close to it, but not perfect. And then I got to camp and dialed it in, and by God's grace, I happened to shoot a bull on my 4th day, but, it doesn't always happen like that. I definitely did not think that was going to happen. But it just shows you muscle memory, right? Like I said, I was never a bad shot right-handed.
Yeah.
I just wasn't at my peak, and my shooting left-handed, I am at my, like, it is the best. However, after working with Joel Turner at Elk Shape in Utah recently, one of the reasons I always say I'm better left-handed is because I would punch the hell out of the trigger right-handed. I've always been aware that I'm a trigger puncher right-handed. I just would get close enough and make it work. That's exactly what I did this past fall. Got to 30 yards, snuck in on a bull, waited for my opportunity. Took like an hour for him to give me opportunity, and 30 yards, and I drilled him. Had that shot been double that, like I've done left-handed a couple of times, no freaking way. I don't think I could have hit it, honest to God. And I knew where my weak point was, but I didn't think I needed to retrain it because, again, I restarted left-handed. I corrected all the mistakes that I knew I had right-handed and that I'd learned over the years. And I'm very confident left-handed. So here we are. I just pulled my left-handed bow back after, what would that be? September, October, November, December, January, February, roughly 6 months. I've not drawn back left-handed. I just drew back a few days ago, like less than a week ago. But I had to turn it down 3 turns. I mean, I'm starting small, and it's discouraging, but I'll get there. So now I'm in this, like, I'm training both sides leading up to the season, and just going to do what I got to do.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's, a lot of people would have given up and not gone on that hunt, or, given up the tag or whatever. I think it's awesome that you still had the opportunity to go. You took, again, controlling what you could control, and you took it in your own hands and did the right-handed bow. So, I'm glad your shoulder's better.
Thank
it's,
you.
Getting fatigued in the gym and then going and shooting is sometimes it's good training, sometimes not, depending on,
I mean,
on the scenario.
I would do it on just like a everyday WOD, like if you're just like, it's just the fact that I did it after a strength portion.
Right.
Like, that was dumb. But again, I didn't know that. I played soccer for 10 years. All I ever did was run. I didn't know anything about weights until I started CrossFit a year ago, pretty much. So you got to give yourself grace if you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you got to fall on your face to learn that. And I just learned, like, A, I need to cool down after I have a really heavy lift, or any kind of lift or workout. You need to cool down. And B, I don't need to go shoot my bow right after that, especially when it's pulling against the muscles I need to use to pull my bow. Like, it's not like a heavy squat day and then I go shoot my bow. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Upper body intensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I got you, but I'm glad you're back. And are you taking your bow for your Alaska hunts?
For caribou, not mountain goat. And
I was going to say there's mountain goat hunters, and then there's mountain goat bow hunters. And I'm like, I don't know how y'all like that. The chance of getting that alone with a rifle is slim to none. You add the bow in there. I don't know, man. I don't know how people do that.
Yeah. The guy so you have to go guided in Alaska. And luckily both of my bosses, well, one of them is a guide. One of them's about to be a guide. He's almost done with his hours. So, so one of them is taking me. They're actually both supposed to be on the hunt. One of them drew the tag with me. The other one is supposed to guide. However, the one that drew the tag with me might draw. He has like a 25% chance of drawing a desert sheep tag. Did I say that right? It's a sheep tag here in Utah. That's all I know. I'm not a sheep hunter. I don't go nuts about sheep. I just don't. Yeah. Sorry if I offend anybody by saying that, but he just said, if I draw a sheep tag, like, I'm out, I'm bailing on your hunt. And he was going to bow hunt. I was going to rifle hunt. He was going to bow hunt. But if he doesn't go, because he was going to let me shoot first with a rifle and then go bow hunting. If he doesn't go, there's a very, very, very small, but I'm going to say there's a little inkling, like a little tiny chance I'll take my bow on the goat hunt. But I think after chasing caribou with a bow, I'm going to be like, give me the gun. Like, just get, no shame.
Yeah, there's some hunts like I can't imagine doing that with a bow, but if you do, awesome. Either way, it's an awesome hunt. There's nothing wrong with a rifle. That. And
Yeah.
so but that's cool. So you've come back from that injury, and then now I just kind of want to hear just a little bit kind of to wrap things up. I know this is a huge, deep, dark rabbit hole we could go down and probably talk about for hours, but what would you like to know as, I guess, if you were a woman listening to this podcast? I know it's difficult. Women are definitely a minority in the hunting industry and in the hunting world. What would you want women out there to know about, whether it be backpacking, hunting, just getting outside in general? If you were in their shoes, what would you want to hear, or what would you want them to know? Because I know there's a lot, and I can only imagine, but yeah.
I think the first thing that a woman needs to hear is that you are just as capable as every male out there, even the best of hunters. I didn't always believe that. Again, I think it's something that you learned through being successful in the outdoors. You grow that kind of confidence, but something that I heard for years before I had started, writing about my own adventures, and started my brand before I worked at Alpen Fuel, was I'd run into women who I could just feel like they just like radiating doubt at the thought of going hunting in general, but especially bow hunting. And so I think that's the first thing that women need to hear, is that you are capable. And if you don't have a male or even a female in your life, but I think females probably do a better job, like, yeah, girl, you can do it. If you have a male in your life that will like take you under his wing and teach you the way that my dad and my husband did, you just need to hear that. You need to hear that from somebody, that you are just as capable as every male, and not to offend any men out there, but it is basically proven across shooting sports that women are a better shot, because there's typically not an ego involved. It's just like, what can I learn? What can I absorb? So you have that going for you, just right off the bat. Not that you can't get cocky. I've certainly gotten cocky before, and I had to learn the hard way, but you're capable. But also know that you're going to fail. You don't hear a lot of men talk about that. Like, be prepared to fail, and be prepared to fail over and over and over again. And you're not going to get it. There's no such thing as like being a perfect hunter or professional hunter or anything. Like, I hate those terms. Like, you are always going to be learning, and you're going to screw up over and over and over again. And if you've never been unsuccessful in a hunt, then you haven't hunted long enough. Like, whether that means you've didn't see an animal, or you missed an animal, or you wounded an animal. I mean, people don't like to talk about that, but that is the reality of hunting, especially bow hunting. So due to women typically being more emotional, or just more emotions on their sleeve, like, what I'm not saying like if you cry or don't cry or anything like that. I'm just saying like you're typically impacted by mistakes or what happens to the animal on the other end of that, more so than a man. And you just have to know that you're going to screw up. Yes, there's a life on the other end of that, but you're going to screw up. And I hate that it's not talked about enough, but I think women really, really need to know that, so that they're not surprised whether you've been successful for 5 years in a row, like, you're going to have some downtime, and it sucks. It's awful, but it's okay. And it happens. And just not everybody talks about it. So I don't know. I think it's like being comfortable with failure. Like, it's like a really weird piece of advice, but it's helped me just remind me that I'm human, and then I'm not going to be perfect all the time. Gosh, I think also that it's okay to do things differently than men. If, I love learning from women. Like I've been fortunate enough to learn from a few women, like for shotgun and pistol and things like that, that men didn't necessarily teach me. But maybe I've been exposed to it, but not tried it. But to learn from a woman is really interesting because we think differently. We speak differently. We're in tune with things that men typically aren't. Like we are made differently for a reason. And it's a beautiful thing. And men are better at things than women. It's not just like, I don't mean to sound that way. But just to know that it's okay to be different. It took me a long time to feel that way hunting with my own husband or even my dad. Like they hunt very differently than me and they're both successful. Like there's a lot of ways to do things. Sometimes me and Braxton literally like are at each other's throat. I'm like, it's just not how I do it, dude. Like that's just not how, but it's not something I would have spoke up about until I'd had enough time in the field to develop confidence and knowledge around why I'm doing it that way. But it's okay. You don't have to do everything identical to the male in your life that maybe it introduces you. I know it's intimidating and I don't really know how I don't know how you get more comfortable with that until you just drill it in your mind that everybody around you has screwed up or they're going to screw up. Like it's like the world we live in, but especially with hunting, it's, I can't say that enough.
Yeah, you definitely see a lot of highlight reels, especially on social media. And that's why there's a handful of people that I'm particularly drawn to on social media because they don't just show the kill shot or it only took us, 5 minutes to find this bull or buck or whatever it is that you're going after. It's you can't compare your life to someone else's highlight reel, which is the majority of social media. Not everyone, but the majority is just a highlight reel. And so the reason why I'm interested in hearing that aspect and what you have to say about that, because I've got daughters. My oldest daughter isn't too interested in hunting, but my youngest is, and probably because she's seen me going out and hunting and she's helped me clean turkeys and things like that I bring home. I think just because she wants the feathers, but
you should make jewelry with her.
Right. Oh man, my wife would kill me. But yeah, so I'm slowly introducing her, to things like that, going out and spotting animals. And, but it's funny because like, my son will say, hey, why don't you go after that deer? And then my daughter's like, but that's a mommy. Like you hear the differences in the two of them, even though they're both interested in hunting with me. And so hopefully I can be a good influence and can take her under my wing like your dad did for you. But definitely there's a lot of women out there that maybe are interested in getting into it. And you've got a good group of ladies that you hang out with and hunt with and speak with on a regular basis. It seems like you guys have that good foundation and that good relationship together to where you do at least one hunt a year together, right? From what I understand.
Yeah.
And if there is a woman out there that's listening or multiple or whoever that feels like maybe they're unsure, are you open? I mean, from what I understand you are, but you're open to having them talk to you, reach out to you and get advice.
Yeah. Of course.
And where can they find you at?
Basically just search Follow Her Arrow on any platform, or followherarrow.com. I've written, like I said, before I worked at Hunting Full, that's what I did full time. And I used to write a lot more. I don't write as much as I would like to, but I try to put lots of tips and tricks, and I don't like to go too far down the gear rabbit hole, but I know that women are built differently. I think it's really important to have things that fit you and are, functional, make sense for us. I talk about my failures a lot in my writing, my doubts, my insecurities. It's hard. It's really vulnerable, but those are the things that I think you probably need to hear that you're going to experience. And I know it sounds super cliche, but don't forget to stop and smell the flowers, and don't feel bad for doing it if you are with a bunch of dudes. Like literally or figuratively, if you want to stop and pick something up, if you want to admire a flower, I stop and look at cactuses and rubs, and I like to feel and smell and, take a photo if I want to. Like, don't be afraid to soak it in and make it whatever it is, whatever's important to you. I've noticed that uh, there's a lot of men think differently in that way, but it's okay. So have fun with it, and just never stop learning. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's awesome. And thank you again for sharing, all of your information and those ideas, especially. I just love hearing different perspectives from different people, and especially being, again, women are a minority in the hunting industry. Like, that's just a fact of things. And I think that as more women like yourself and Amanda and sorry, remind me of the third. There's a third person, Rihanna, right? So between you three, you guys do a great job of putting that message out there. That women are, like what you were saying, capable. Failure is okay, which it is for everyone, right? You shouldn't feel less of a person just because you don't fill a tag or you injure an animal, and you've done your due diligence with that. I love that message. And so anyone out there listening, that wants someone to connect with, so that you can get the resources that you need. Jessica's an awesome way to figure that out. She's just down to earth, Texas Southern style person that just loves to chat about these things and can lead you in the right direction. I just want to ask you one last question to wrap up here. Sure. What is, if you had to narrow it down to one reason why you do what you do, what would that one reason be?
Wow.
I love putting people on the spot.
One reason why I do what I do. I think is I just don't want to coast through life. I want to feel like I actually lived my life. I don't want to feel like I live to work. I want to feel like I'm working to live, and I live very, very fully. So, when I'm on my deathbed or when it's my time to go, I want to feel like I truly lived it. And I set an example that, there are a lot more important things to life. And sometimes it's being in the middle of nowhere, away from everything that you think is important.
That's awesome. I love it. And, I think that's so important. Just living your life to the fullest, like, so you have no regrets. So you don't, when you do pass, however that may be, whether it be a mountain lion or a bear or just, natural causes, you can know that you did everything within the time that was given to you. And you've lived the fullest life, and you can be done and be happy. I love that. So, yeah, I'll leave the links in the description below as far as where people can find you. I highly recommend following Jess in her journey as she goes through everything. And it's definitely going to get even more interesting as I, follow you through your Alaska stuff. I'm super stoked for that. And I'm kind of jealous, to be honest with you, but I'll be there eventually. I'll get up to Alaska at some point. But yeah, you guys go follow Jess and reach out to her if you have any questions. And as I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it. Definitely hope you appreciated that conversation as much as I did. For any of you young women or ladies out there that are looking to have a good mentor or need to find a way to get into the outdoors, definitely reach out to Jess. I'll leave her information down below where you can reach out to her. She's very responsive and just an amazing individual that guides you in the right direction, because she just wants you to succeed, basically. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in today for this amazing conversation. Again, I'd love to see you over at RedBeard's Fit Crew on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group where we just kind of talk about our fitness goals, share meals, recipes that we enjoy, or workouts that we enjoy, or our passion for being outdoors with our families, loved ones, or just by ourselves. So go check us out over there at RedBeard's Fit Crew. And also, of course, go check me out on Instagram, red.beard.outdoors. And I'd love to see you over there as well. Let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email. Have an amazing day. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.